all career stages proposing innovative, high-risk, high-reward research. We're going to let everyone get settled for a bit and get logged in, and then we will get started. Okay, we do want to let everyone know that this webinar will be recorded and posted to the NRMN YouTube channel. I will add some links throughout the webinar to the chat so you all can find our YouTube channel and our websites and other things of that manner. Before we get started, I will do a brief intro about NRMN, the National Research Mentoring Network. Founded in 2014, NRMN is an NIH grant-funded initiative whose entire purpose is to diversify the STEM workforce. We do this by providing researchers across all career stages in the biomedical, behavioral, clinical, and social sciences field with evidence-based mentorship and professional development programming that emphasizes the benefits and challenges of diversity, inclusivity, and culture. Our program achieves that through mentorship, networking, and professional development through our online networking platform, My NRMN, which has over 22,000 mentors and mentees. We do encourage you to visit our website, nrmnnet.net, to learn more about our resources. NRMN is delighted to provide this opportunity for everyone to participate in this webinar and have your questions directly answered by these incredibly talented panelists. We will be offering a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so we do encourage you to type any questions that you may have in the Q&A feature down below. From NRMN, we want to give a special thank you to the NIH Funding Opportunities for Scientists panelist for providing this webinar for us. And now I will pass it over to Trish Lebowski to begin the webinar.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're going to share our slides. I'm going to wait for that to happen. There we go. Okay, so it's really my pleasure to introduce our team, myself, Trish Lebowski, and next to me on the screen, Becky Miller, and then Ravi Basavappa. We're all program leaders or program officers in the Office of Strategic Coordination, or the Common Fund. And our other partner who's not with us today is Ali Murcia, who is our program specialist that keeps us going in the right direction when we tend to go off on a high risk, venture or something. So we're here to talk to you today, and Ravi and Becky will pop in. I'll give an intro, but they'll pop in when they're talking about the initiatives that they run. So on the next slide, just in general, to remind you, the National Institutes of Health, with our primary mission of turning discovery into health, and really the mission is to enhance human health, lengthen lives, and reduce illness and disability. So on the next slide, the overall budget for this past fiscal year, FY22, and that's not a calendar year, right? It's a fiscal year. It starts October 1st and ends September 30th. So we're coming up near the end of it, but it was $45 billion for the entire NIH. And most of that money goes out of the NIH and goes to external institutions like your university. As you can see here, over 50,000 grants, 300,000 researchers, and 2,500 different institutions, we call them extramural institutions, that are doing research. On top of that, there's a smaller proportion of the research money that goes directly to NIH scientists. You've probably heard a lot about this year, making things like vaccines and all, and doing lots of primary discovery-based research within what we call the intramural research program. And then at the base of that, there's also a little bit of money left over for what we call administration, to make all the rest of everything happen, right? And that includes people like myself, Becky, and Ravi that are here talking to you today. So on the next slide, I want to point out that the National Institutes of Health, it really is institutes. That second word there is plural, which a lot of people either don't know or kind of forget. But there are 27 different institutes and centers across the entire NIH, and you can see them bulleted out there on the slide. So there are things that maybe you have heard of, maybe you haven't. National Institute for General Medical Sciences. They're administering the NRMN, which you've just clicked into this webinar, right? There's National Library of Medicine that you can click into and get articles that you might want to read, or you can request them or whatever. But you can see there is different scientific focus to most of these different institutes, and they're specifically focused on something like mental health or digestive and kidney disease, right? Dental craniofacial research. However, we're a little different. We're down here, this Office of the Director. That is us, the three of us in the Common Fund office. And on the next slide, it tells you a little bit about the Office of the Director and the NIH Common Fund. So back in ages ago, right? 2006, the Common Fund was first designated by Congress as a specific appropriation for the budget from the Senate. So we're in the Office of the Director, in the division there, our Office of Strategic Coordination, right? It used to be what was called a TAP on the NIH budget, but in 2006 that all changed because the experiment of the 3 years between 2003 2006 was such a success. So on the next slide, this is our current leader, Dr. Larry Tabak, who is in an acting role as the NIH director, but he shares the vision of the NIH Common Fund that you can see bulleted out here again. So we're really designed to address emerging scientific opportunities with pressing challenges. We are supposed to be accelerating the pace of discovery and also improve translation of basic research into medical and health interventions. So the Common Fund sort of functions as what our leaders have called a venture capital space. And it's really designed to support high risk, sometimes we hope high reward, very innovative research. All of Common Fund programs are limited term investments per Congress. They cannot be more than 10 years long, and they're all goal and milestone driven. So very specific goals in all of our programs. On the next slide, there's a list of all of our programs have to meet these various goals. So they have to be unique, transformative, synergistic, catalytic, and cross-cutting. So what does that mean really? Again, they're short-term catalytic programs, at most 10 years. They start out at 5, sometimes they're longer, or sometimes they go to 10, but they have to have a specific goal. We work across all the different NIH centers that were listed out there before with their different scientific missions. Well, we kind of provide a bridge across all of those different institutes to work together to come up with things that will be catalytic and synergistic across all the institutes and centers, or maybe not all, but most usually. We like to think our programs are unique, and they usually involve a lot of NIH coordination, which is usually our role. So here's a list of all these common fund programs, and I don't expect you to read this, but you might notice the fifth bullet down there, enhancing the diversity of the NIH funded workforce, and that includes the NRMN with their partners in Build. But you can see there's all kinds of different science all over the place on this list. But what we're here to talk to you about today are these ones down here on the bottom in red now, the HRHR research program, high risk, high reward. And we'll cover these 4 different types of awards as we go through the webinar. So just to give you kind of a global idea here, this HRHR program is designed to support outstanding scientists at all different career stages, different initiatives for different career stages. And the idea is these wonderful scientists are going to be proposing high risk, high reward, high impact research. Every year, pending disaster, but every year we have annually funding opportunities that come out. So each year there's a new RFA that one would apply to for each one of these 4 opportunities. Each one of them invites these high risk, high impact ideas. In fact, if it's low risk and medium impact, it probably won't go very far. So it has to be high risk. We don't require any preliminary data. We don't require a detailed experimental plan. What we want are ideas. They have to be feasible. And so you have to give the reviewers enough meat that they can chew on, that they're going to understand what you're going to do. But you don't have to have all the details laid out in the application. These applications are very different from what you might see in a typical R01 or K01 or F31 or F32 application. Any topic, any scientific topic within the NIH mission is welcome. So you can see the list down there. So again, we're not dedicated specifically, let's say, to neurobiology or digestive disease. Anything is welcome, anything within the entire mission, okay? So we really want investigators with diverse backgrounds and from all eligible institutions. You have to be able to perform the research you're suggesting at your institution, but you don't have to be in a research intensive environment in order to apply. And we really want everyone to try, because we're looking for ideas from across the boards. So this is our high risk, high reward working group. And you can see a lot of names, doesn't matter. But in parentheses after each names, you see a little acronym that corresponds to the institute or center at the NIH. And myself, Becky, and Robbie here today, we're in the OD, the Office of the Director, but you can see folks from all over the place, from kidney, musculoskeletal, environmental health, general medicine, genome, everywhere across the NIH. So the point of this is that this really is a trans NIH effort, and we're all working on this across all the different areas of science, looking for all kinds of science. And these folks do an awful lot of work to get the awards out for these 4 different initiatives. So I want to acknowledge them. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Ravi, and he's going to talk to you first about the DP1s, if he's still on. There he is. Okay, I'll be quiet now. Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you. Thank you, Trish, for that introduction, and thank you all for joining the webinar today. I hope it's of value to you. So as Trish mentioned, I will be talking about the Pioneer Award initiative. This was the initial initiative in what has become the HRHR research program in the Common Fund. The objective of the Pioneer Award initiative is to support individual scientists with who've done cool stuff in the past. They have a track record of doing very creative things, and who, going forward, propose projects that are bold, that address major challenges in biomedical and behavioral research. So this was started in 2004, the original initiative within the HRHR program. It is open to people at all career stages. That's really true. But in practice, what happens is that most of the people who apply tend to be more senior, associate professor and more seniors than that. And so most of the people who receive the award are those who are associate professor or more senior. But we do, but this initiative really is open to people at all career stages. We have made awards to beginning assistant professors who are waiting for their pipettes to come in, and they had some time and they wrote a Pioneer Award application, and their application was funded. So this is the Pioneer Award, which means that the research that's proposed must be a new research direction for the investigator and for the field. It should be a pivot in what the person has been doing. It shouldn't be the logical next steps or natural extension of the investigator's research, but should really be a discontinuity in the trajectory of research. This has some unusual features. So when the Pioneer Award initiative was started, we wanted to make it different in all aspects from the standard R01 program in the application process, the review process, and how the awards are administered. So for example, in the application, we require 3 letters of reference. We also require that the Pioneer awardees commit at least 51% of their research efforts to the Pioneer Award project. The idea here is that we don't want the Pioneer Award to be yet another research grant that the principal investigator has, but really to be the focus of his or her laboratory. The awards are pretty generous, $700,000 per year in direct costs for 5 years. So people can go after pretty ambitious ideas. And it uses the DP1 activity code. So you might hear people colloquially refer to the Pioneer Awards as DP1s. The receipt date is coming up. It's September 9th, 2022. And the FOA number is given there. As Trish said, we expect to have annual funding opportunities. So the next one, the receipt date is September 9th. Next slide, please. So how is the Pioneer Award application different from the standard R01 application? For the R01, the research strategy section is 12 pages long, and there are expectations for a lot of experimental details and supporting data. And when the initiative was started, for the R01, the research strategy section had a page limit of 25 pages, which was substantially longer. But for the Pioneer Award, the major component of the application is a 3 to 5 page essay. It's pretty much a vision statement instead of the research, normal research strategy section. So in this essay then, we ask the applicants to address items of programmatic interest. For example, overall, what is the scientific problem? What is the significance? Why is it so important? And overall, what is the pioneering approach that you're proposing to use? We also ask the investigators to explicitly address the evidence for innovativeness. What unusually innovative things have you done in the past? How have you overcome substantial technical and conceptual hurdles in the past, or challenged paradigms, established new paradigms? How is the research direction different from what you've been doing? How is this really a pivot for you? And suitability for the award. So why is what you're proposing really better suited for the Pioneer Award than, for example, the traditional R01? In the R01 application, a lot of details are required for budget, animal, and human subjects information. Yes, and there's a detailed budget that's required, especially when the budget request is greater than $250,000 in direct costs in any given year. But for the Pioneer Award, there's no detailed budget. We asked the applicants to just indicate $3.5 million, just one number. That's the direct cost that's given over 5 years. We asked for no more information than that. You can't give any more information. There's no detailed budget pages, for example. We do require the applicants to provide additional information about human subjects or animal subjects if they are to be used. But we educate the reviewers that these are really best guesses on the part of the investigators. They haven't worked out all the details, and this is what they think they'll need and why. For the letters of support, they are encouraged for the standard R1, but they're not allowed for the Pioneer Award, because here the focus is on the PI. Only single PI applications are allowed, no multi-PI applications. For the standard R1, the research effort, it depends on the project. But for the Pioneer Award, as I mentioned, at least 51% research effort for the first 3 years. I should qualify this by saying this is research effort. The effort does not include effort toward teaching, clinical, or administrative duties, only research effort. And this requirement of 51% is for the first 3 years. We allow the Pioneer awardees to ramp down their effort to the Pioneer Award project to 33% and 25% in years 4 and 5 respectively, to help them transition to other sources of NIH support, because you cannot renew the Pioneer Award. You can apply for a subsequent Pioneer Award, but you can't renew an existing Pioneer Award through a type 2 application, for example. For the standard R1 reference, letters of reference are not allowed, but for the Pioneer Award, 3 letters of reference are required. Again, to attest to the qualities of the investigator. The review process is also quite different for the Pioneer Award initiative, for the Pioneer Award applications. Here, when the applications are received, no, 2 PIs cannot apply for the Pioneer Award. It's only a single PI. So it's a 2-phase process. In the first phase, all the applications that are received in response to the FOA are reviewed by electronic reviewers or mail reviewers, MAIL reviewers. They are chosen, 2 of the 3 electronic reviewers are chosen to have expertise in the broad area of what's being proposed, for example, neuroscience or cell biology or immunology, something broad as that. But the 3rd of the 3 reviewers is chosen to be someone who has expertise well outside that. So, for example, if the proposal is on cell biology, then the 3rd reviewer might be doing behavioral research or maybe doing some computational biology. So something very different. So the reviewers in the first phase then provide comments and brief comments and scores. These comments and scores are given to the second panel editorial board, which consists of maybe 12 to 15 scientists with very diverse scientific backgrounds. Informed by the results from the first phase, the second panel, the editorial panel, selects about 25 people who they think are the most pioneering in that batch of applications. And these 25 people are then invited for interview in front of the entire panel. And it's this panel then that provides the scores from which the overall priority score for the application is calculated. Then, as typical, the applications then go to the council, in this case, the Council of Councils, for second level review and approval. So it is very different than the standard R01 application. But when you write your application, you should be sure that it's compelling to people well outside the field. They should be able to get it very easily why what you're proposing is so really exceptionally innovative, does have the potential for unusually broad impact. At the same time, it should be compelling to people who know something about the science being proposed. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll hand it over to Trish.
Thanks, Ravi. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's colloquially known as the DP2s, because that's the activity code that is used for the new Innovator Awards. So similar to the Pioneers, this is a more person-centered award, and it's designed to support very creative early career investigators that are proposing innovative, high-risk, high-impact research. Started many years ago, right? 2007. And you must be an ESI, an early stage investigator, to apply. So what is an ESI? That is set by NIH policy, not by our office. And you have to be within 10 years of your terminal doctoral degree, PhD or MD, or clinical training if you did clinical training. So within the first 10 years after effectively your training ended, postdoc doesn't count as training in this case. So that is set by the date usually of when you completed those activities, and you can, especially in this tumultuous time of pandemics and what all, you can apply to have that ESI status extended if needed, but you must have that be in that 10-year window. Also, you cannot have received any substantial NIH grant yet, so that you're kind of trying to get your first grant. You could have other grants from other sources, that's fine. What we care about our NIH is NIH funding. Again, you have to commit to a 25% research effort here, not quite as much as the Pioneer, but 25% of your research time. So if you have clinical duties, that doesn't count, right? Just the research effort. The awards, we try to be very flexible with the budget. They're dispersed in 2 multi-year segments of first 900,000 with indirects on top of that for the administrators in the audience for the first 3 years. And then at the end, the last 2 years, it's another 600,000 plus indirects. So basically it's $300,000 a year. You don't have to, well, we'll get to the budget in a minute, but you don't have to be super detailed with the budget. And again, it uses the DP2 activity code. This year, the applications are due in about 6 weeks. So if you're planning on doing this, you should be in the middle of writing or starting to really, start writing tomorrow maybe, but soon, right? And the RFA number is down there on the screen. You can Google that and pull the RFA up, which you should read, by the way. Anytime you're thinking of applying to an NIH request for application as RFA, you should read them closely because they have some really important facts in there that should help you design your application. So on the next slide, so a few of the details about the DP2 new Innovator applications. Again, it's different from an R01. It's an essay. It's not an R01 application. And you should write it differently because what we've seen in the past is if you write it like an R01, the reviewers will review it like an R01, and then they will tell you it should be an R01 and not a DP2. So you really want to focus on the bullets here. What's the scientific problem? And how is your work going to change the world? What's the significance of what you're going to do with this award in the next 5 years? So what's the potential impact to the scientific, healthcare, whatever community, whichever, wherever your research is focused. As you might imagine, per the title of the initiative, innovation is absolutely key. If it's not innovative, you will hear that from the reviewers. So there has to be something new here, it might be a technique, it might be a tool development, it might be a combination of tried and true tools that you're putting together in a really unique way, but there has to be something here that's different, that has not been seen before. And again, as Ravi was saying about the pioneers, it should not be a logical extension of, for example, your postdoctoral work or your PhD or something like that. It shouldn't be, oh, of course, that's what they would do next. This should be different. There should be a leap forward. And you should explain that leap forward and the significance of that leap as well. We invite high risk. We want it. Without it, we don't want it. But you do have to describe how you're going to handle that risk. So if there are certain, approaches or technologies that might be risky, how are you going to handle that? What are some of the alternatives? How are you going to control for them? So you need to put some of that information in there. Why is the science that you're writing suitable for a DP2? And why is it not an R01? right? You have to explain to the reviewers how this is a DP2. This is innovative. This is different. This is going to change the world. And this is how it's going to do it. And of course, you also have to talk about your own qualifications. Again, your background of innovation and creativity in the past and why you're the right person to do this research, to do this project. Very brief budget or animal information or human subject information, very, very brief. And we have directions for how to fill that out on the website. You're not allowed to have letters of support. So you can have a collaborator, you can there may be collaborations that are inherent to your project, but they can't write you a letter. So the person down the hall that's gonna, I don't know, make an antibody for you or something like that, they can't provide a letter for you saying they're gonna do that. You just say, I'm gonna work with so-and-so. I've worked with them in the past, as you can see from our papers, maybe if you have them, or, I've worked with them in the past because they're down the hall from me, whatever. You explain the relationship and you explain what they'll do to support the science that you're proposing. Again, 25% research effort. And again, if you have clinical effort, it doesn't count that. It's only the research effort, 25% of whatever percent you have for research. And again, letters of reference are not allowed either. This is another one of those person-centric awards. It's about you, the applicant, and your innovative ideas that are going to change the world. So on the next slide, the review is sort of similar to the Pioneer in that there are two phases. When the applications are received and they go out to, again, MAIL, M-A-I-L reviewers who have some expertise in the area of the application. And those three individuals provide a critique and an overall score. And then all of the applications, and there are a lot of them, go forward to the second phase, or this editorial panel that actually meets. They meet, they decide on a subset that will be discussed, which is on average around 20% of the applications received get discussed. So when they're discussed, they'll receive, again, a panel score for how meritorious the panel perceives them to be. The phase 2 reviewers will lean on the phase 1 reviews for assessments of their, feasibility of the approach and et cetera, but they're really looking for innovation here too. So you have to have both. So you have to write to the specialists that will understand the science well enough to really get what you're saying you're going to do, and importantly, what you're going to produce at the end of the 5-year award. But then there's also the phase 2 panel who will be looking at it a little bit more for innovation rather than approach. So it's a balance, and you have to meet both of those. There is no interview. It's strictly done with the application that you submitted. And then finally, the second level review, as for all other NIH applications, is done by the council. So that is it for the new innovators. The only thing I didn't say that might be in the chat I didn't look at is that the success rate is around about 8 to 10%, depending on the year. For the last 5 years, we've averaged 9.5%. So it is definitely not as high a percentage as an R01, but again, if you don't apply, it's 0%. So please apply. So I'll hand it back now to Ravi.
Okay, thank you, Trish. So I will briefly describe the third flavor of within the HRHR program, the Transformative Research Award. So unlike the other 3 initiatives, the Pioneer Award, the New Innovator Award, and the Early Independence Award that Becky will describe, the Transformative Research Award allows multi-PI applications as well as single PI applications. So team science that supports a multi-PI mode for applying is welcome, but single PI applications are welcome as well. The Transformative Research Award initiative also differs from the other three initiatives in that there's no fixed budget. You can ask for whatever you think is really commensurate with the scope of the project that you're proposing. You can ask for $200,000 a year in direct costs, or you can ask for $1.5 million in direct costs per year, whatever you think you really need. Of course, you have to justify the budget that you're requesting. So but like the other programs, this really seeks to solicit and support very bold ideas, exceptionally innovative research, unconventional research, projects that have the potential to create or overturn fundamental paradigms. This was started in 2009, and it's open to individuals or teams at all career stages. The budgets are flexible, as I've said. There's no need to seek prior approval for a large budget request, as some of you may know. Typically for NIH, if you're planning to request more than $500,000 in direct costs in any year, you usually need to seek prior approval from the program officer overseeing that program. But for the Transformative Research Award and for the other three initiatives, well, for the Transformative Research Award, you don't need to seek such prior approval since these large budgets are baked into the FOA. Like the other three initiatives, the Transformative Research Award awards cannot be renewed. There's no type 2 application. They typically last up to 5 years. And something that's very interesting is that we're piloting anonymized review. This pilot is for 3 years. And before we advance, I'd just like to note that the receipt date for this initiative is September 1st. And the FOA number is also given there on the slide. Next slide, please. So we're piloting anonymized review here because, as Trish said, the Common Fund really seeks to not only support innovative research, but also be innovative in the way we support the research. One experiment that I think is pretty cool is this anonymized review process. Here we take great pains to de-emphasize the identities of the investigator and institutions so that for much of the review process, the focus is on the idea and not who's proposing the idea or where they are situated, which institutions they come from. So here through the anonymization, we seek to focus on the idea and the innovation. And we also hope to incentivize people to apply who normally might not apply to this sort of program, because if they look, they'll see, oh, these people come from such and such institutions, or they have this international reputation in the field, I'll never have a chance. But here this might incentivize them when they know that the identities of the investigators and institutions are not divulged until the very end of the review process. So we give some pretty clear instructions, I think, about how we ask the applicants to anonymize the applications. Here, it's important to note that we ask the applicants to anonymize only 2 components of the application, the specific aims page and the research strategy section. All the other components of the application can be written as usual, including all the names and institutions and whatnot. But for only these 2 components, the specific aims page and the research strategy section, the 12-page research strategy section, we ask the applicants to not provide any information from which the identity of the investigators or institutions can be readily inferred. And to do that, we provide these instructions. We don't need to go into the details here, but if you're planning to apply for the Transformative Research Award, please pay very close attention to the instructions, because if you don't, then we'll have to administratively withdraw the application. And it's really a sad duty of mine to do that when such information is included accidentally. And so we have to say, oops, sorry, we have to withdraw the application. So please be very careful in how you write these 2 components, especially the specific aims page and the research strategy section. We also have a tool available this year. So this is the third year of a 3-year pilot. And this year we have a tool available called Track. The link to that tool is in the FOA and also on the website, or the link to that can be found in the FOA or on our website. And it's a tool that will help you to pre-screen your specific games page and research strategy sections if you submit them as PDFs. It's only for general guidance, it's not definitive, but it might help you catch those accidents of including information that would provide the identity of the investigators or institutions, and it might be worth trying out. Next slide, please. And I should say that the anonymization pilot so far has been pretty encouraging. In the first 2 years, we've made awards to individuals and to institutions, to new institutions who have never received the Transformative Research Award before, and the diversity of the applicants has also increased, which is what we're seeking to do. So as I mentioned, for most of the review process for the Transformative Research Award, the identities of the investigators and institutions are concealed to the reviewers. We have a 3-phase review process. We call it the editorial board sometimes. So the editorial board in this case also consists of 12 to 15 scientists with very diverse scientific backgrounds. In the first phase in this experiment, then they will have access only to the anonymized specific games page. So you have to be very careful on how you write your specific games page, because it's really critical for you to advance to the next phase in the review. So in the phase 1, the editorial board has access only to that single specific games page. And we ask the applicants we give instructions on how we use a specific games page to serve as a distillation of the entire application. Why is it so significant? What is the innovation? What is the unique insight that's driving the application? Such things, not the typical specific games page where you enumerate 2, 3, or 4 specific games, but more a distillation of the entire proposal and why it is potentially transformative. So based on the readings of the specific games pages by the editorial board members, they select a subset of applications to go to the second phase. And remember, in the first phase, it's highly unlikely that people on the board will be topic experts in what you're proposing, because they come from a variety of different scientific backgrounds. So in the second phase, the subset of applications that the editorial board selects then goes to the second phase, in which this subset of applications were reviewed by technical reviewers, people who actually know something about the science being proposed. And in the second phase, the technical reviewers have access only to the anonymized specific games page and the anonymized 12-page research strategy section. The technical reviewers then provide feedback about the proposal, the technical merit of the proposal. Is it really exceptionally innovative for the field, or is it more pedestrian, more incremental, more conventional, or maybe is it too crazy even for the Transformative Research Award initiative? Is a potential broad, or is it too narrow of focused? Feedback such as that to describe in technical terms whether or not the application is really well aligned with the spirit of the Transformative Research Award initiative. So in the third phase then, informed by the comments from the technical reviewers, the editorial board selects a further subset of applications to discuss and score. And it's only after the editorial board determines which applications to discuss that the full applications of this subset are made available to the editorial board. It's only after they choose which ones to discuss that they can then see the bio sketches, the bibliography, citation, and all the other components of the application. And then they use the full application in the discussion, because by law, they have to review all the 5 standard review criteria, including the investigator and the environment. So at the very end, they are required to consider all 5 standard review criteria. It's the editorial panel then that provides the individual scores from which the overall priority score is calculated, and then as with the others, goes to council for second level review. I think that's it. Okay.
All right, and I'm talking about the Early Independence Award, which is the baby of the group. We do have a funding opportunity out right now, after due September 2nd, and the RFA is given on the slide. So this is known locally as the Skip the Postdoc Award. So this is meant to help outstanding junior scientists move into independent research positions and skip the traditional postdoc. So because of this purpose of the award, we have very strict eligibility requirements. The first one being that you must complete your terminal doctoral degree or complete your clinical training sometime between June 1st of 2021 and September 30th of 2023. We also require that you not have more than 12 months of postdoctoral experience after a non-terminal degree. So that means you got a PhD, you went and postdoced for 13 months, and then you went back to school and got another PhD. That would make you ineligible. But if you only have one degree that fits within that June 1st, 2021 and September 30th, 2023 that you received, and by the time you submit your application, you've been postdocing for 12 months, that's fine. It's only if you went back and got a second degree that would matter. We also require that you are in a non-independent position at the time you submit your application. And we define non-independence functionally rather than by title. And there are 4 criteria that we use. The first one is that your research agenda is set with concurrence from mentors. So you have to go to somebody and say, hey, I want to do this, have your permission. The second is that your funding for your research comes primarily through your mentors or other people involved in the research. You don't have your own major grants supporting research. The third one is that you do not have space assigned to you for the conduct of the research by the institution. And the fourth is that you can't submit an NIH R01 application without special permission or a special waiver from the institution. All 4 of those mean that you are in a non-independent research position. So that's a requirement, but once you hit that you submit that application, you hit that submit button. After that, then you are welcome to take on an independent position. Just got to do it before you submit that application. We also require that you have an institution to go to. So you need to find a host institution that will offer you an independent research position. NIH does not match people to host institutions, so you will need to look around for those opportunities yourself. We do have a limit of 2 applications per institution. So a lot of institutions have some sort of selection process to determine which 2 candidates are going to submit for the Early Independence Award. So you'll need to check with them to see if you can be one of those candidates. We also require that you commit 9.6 months each year to the DP5, which is the mechanism here, the Early Independence Award project, for the first 2 years of the award. So that's a very significant time commitment, so you'll need to keep that in mind. These awards are $250,000 per year for up to 5 years, and we do conduct a site visit probably in the first year or a little after the first year. So this does use the DP5 mechanism, and once again, it's different from the R01. You'll see here that I reiterate that we have that 2 application per institution limit. So please check with your institution. For the research strategy essay, it's 12 pages long, and it's very detailed in the funding opportunity. You need to answer questions that can prompt you for certain responses. So please make sure you follow the RFA very closely so that you answer those questions that are posed. But it's unique in that we're asking not only for your research proposal, but we ask a lot of questions about your qualifications and skills, and particularly what type of career development or mentorship plan that you will have in place to help you as you transition into an independent research position. So follow that closely. It's a very unique application, in that we want to hear how you'll be really helped and helped by your host institution, that you'll succeed in your independence. There's also, for the facilities and other resources section, there's a lot of information that we ask from the institution specifically. So there are no page limits to this, but this is an opportunity for the institution to write out how they're going to support you and how committed they are to you. It's a really important component of the application and should not be overlooked. So once again, look in the RFA for more information. You will be completing a modular budget. We do and encourage letters of support and letters of collaboration. For the biosketch, we only allow your biosketch, so do not include collaborators or anyone else's biosketch application anywhere. Allow yours. Once again, research effort is 96 months for the first 2 years. You do require letters of reference that can attest to your skills, your abilities, and your readiness for independence. The review process is similar to some others that we talked about before. There are two levels of review. All applications will be taken to the Center for Scientific Review that will conduct our review for us. They will get the applications. They will look at the topics that you of your application, and they will find topic experts to review your applications. So the topic experts look through your application, review it, they provide comments and some preliminary scores. Those comments and scores are then sent to a study of the reviewers called the editorial panel, composed of scientists with broad background and expertise who are very likely not going to be subject experts in your application scope. But they're there to look at the bigger view, and they will take those comments from the topic experts in consideration as they review their application. And what they'll do is they'll look, identify a subset of the most meritorious applications that they wish to discuss at an in-person or virtual meeting, which they then do, and then discuss and provide final scores. And then the last level is the council approval to make sure that the review is conducted fairly. And I will say that we have had independent evaluations done on each of our initiatives just to make sure that we are actually doing what we have set out to do. So we had STIPI, use multimodal analysis, compare the output of our different initiatives with those of comparison groups like matched R1 investigators. And what they found was that our HRHR awardees do produce more innovative and impactful research than the comparison groups. And importantly, we found that there was no harm done to new innovator and early independence awardees' careers. This was a concern to us because for new innovators, we're asking these very early career scientists to pursue riskier research. And we didn't want to harm their career if they're pursuing things that may not pan out. But looks like there's no harm done. And for early independence awardees, we're asking you to skip postdoc, to start a career a bit earlier than is typically done, and we found that there was no adverse impact of that. So I just wanted to briefly give some examples of award that we've supported. So this is Idioma Opara at Yale. She's using a community-based type of method to look at the relationship between urban neighborhoods and substance use and mental health among the youth in Patterson, New Jersey. So she's looking at some very innovative ways of collecting data in these settings. Another one is Ishan Barman, who's a new innovator awardee, who has developed these non-invasive sensors that can measure real-time structural and biochemical responses in live functioning cells. And he's actually used this for detecting SARS-CoV-2. So all it requires is a sample on a sensor. There's no other or prep needed. I can tell you whether or not there's active virus. There's actually a virus in that sample. So these are some examples of research that we've supported. There's a lot more that we could highlight. We don't have time though, but I would encourage you, if you want to hear about really cool research, we do have an annual symposium that's in June. Our website for more information on it, but we do invite you. It's open to the public. It's a really fun time to hear about all this amazing innovative research going on. So maybe Steve Jobs. And the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So and apply for these initiatives. I'll leave you with a way to go to our website, commonfund.nih.gov/high-risk, and our various email addresses are also there, so you can reach out to us. But we are available to take questions now. So So Trish, you want
So Becky, I'm going to interrupt because at least I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you on some of those things. But so maybe I could just narrate some of these questions that we haven't asked yet verbally and ask you and or me and or Ravi to answer them. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm just going to go through this. For early independence, so Becky, does research scientist position count as an independent position? You know, another way to think about that is how do they need to define their independent position?
Yes, so we define that functionally. And it's the 4 criteria of you need concurrence with mentors to conduct your research. You don't have funding for your research, you don't have space, and that you would need special permission to apply for NIH funding.
Okay, great. So I'm going to answer one. It says, can I apply for a new Innovator Award and also for an R01? And the answer to that is, well, yes, you can, as long as the science in the 2 applications do not overlap, right? So you cannot have 2 scientific overlapping applications under review at the same time, anytime. Now, specifically, that's for NIH applications. If you apply to some other government foundation, whatever, that's fine. But if it's an NIH application, it cannot overlap. Let's see, I grab another one here. Are postdocs limited to DP5, or is a DP2 also an option? I think for postdocs, you should be focused on the DP5, not the DP2. For the DP2, you really need to already be in that independent position. So I think it just depends on where you are. I don't know, Becky, did I answer that correctly? Because they're not supposed to be a postdoc yet if they do a DP5.
It depends on, they make that eligibility window as well as whether or not this is the 2nd postdoc they've served.
Okay. Let's see, Ravi, for Transformative Research Award that is multi-PI, if one PI is an ESI, will they lose ESI status if the grant is awarded?
Yes, they will, and that's the standard NIH policy. And I should also add that if you get the DP2 or the DP5, then you also lose your ESI status because they are considered substantial NIH awards.
Great, thank you. Can you give, Ravi, can you give some more details about the 3 letters of reference that are needed for a Pioneer Award?
The 3 letters of reference for the Pioneer Award, it should be somebody from people who can speak to your track record of innovation, of doing impactful, creative things in the past, and maybe speak to your potential for doing so in the future, and also comment on the proposal itself and why it does seem so innovative and potentially so impactful. It shouldn't, typically, we should not come from somebody who's invested in the outcome of the research. For example, a collaborator, your department chair, your dean, who has some sort of investment in the outcome of the research. It should be somebody else who's not associated, or it would be writing ex officio.
So a similar sort of question, Ravi, what kind of questions or criteria are the reviewers using during the Pioneer interview process?
Well, they have to consider the 5 standard review criteria, but the emphases, so the structure, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but the structure of the interview is a 15-minute presentation by the interviewee, followed by a 15-minute discussion between the interviewee and the panel, followed by a 15-minute closed-door discussion of the interviewee by the panel. But during the presentation and discussion, the emphases really are on the innovation, the track record of the of the investigator. Does he or she really have the track record and to provide confidence that this person will give what's being proposed the best shot? And another unusual feature of the Pioneer Work Program is that this seeks to invest in the investigator. That's one way we mitigate the research. We're asking these people to go after really risky kind of ideas that, if they worked out, would be very impactful, but they may not work out. That's part of trying to take a risky approach. So we're trying to identify and support people who we have some confidence, yes, they'll give this the best possible shot. And if they don't succeed, then they'll find something else very useful to do with the money. So we provide unusual flexibility, and we ask the panel to look at these sort of qualities. We don't ask the panel to go into a lot of details about what's being proposed, but more high-level discussions. And but they also need to assess whether the applicant has not constructed a house of cards per se, but has really thought deeply about the project, has thought about potential uses. What happens if things go wrong? Then what would he or she do? So to probe quite deeply into the mindset and the level of confidence that the investigator would pursue the research in a very robust and rigorous manner, despite it being risky.
Thanks, Ravi. I know we're at the end of our time. There were a lot of questions about ESI status and ESI extensions. So all you need to do is Google NIH ESI policy, and you will come up with this sheet, this site that has all the information you need. Our office is not in charge of ESI extensions, but there is an office, and you can email them and ask them questions. I don't know how much longer we're supposed to carry on. I don't want to keep people. There's a question about the NIAID specific DP2. And I just want to clarify that DP2 is just a mechanism like R01 or anything else. So really any institute or center could use it. Okay, it says we can stay on however long, no hard stop. Well, I know that people have other things they need to do in their lives though. So we'll try to wrap up here. But the DP2 again is just a mechanism. So if you want to know more about that, I would suggest you look at their RFA and contact the contacts listed there. I don't want to speak for them. So, but they also are for ESI level PIs and highly innovative research. There's one specific question here, Ravi. I'm hoping you can answer this because Becky had to go. If we submit a DP5 before starting an independent position, but the letters are submitted after we start our position before the September deadline, what is the date of our application submitted based on our submission date or when all the letters come in? So the applications are due on a specific date. Everything has to be in by that date.
Correct. And the letters have to be in by that date as well.
So yeah, so there might be some confusion about that. The letters come in before the due date for the entire application. Okay, so yeah. And finally, letters of reference for the DP5. Can you tell us anything else about that? I'll let you answer that one, Ravi.
Yeah,
they're similar to the Pioneers, right?
Yeah, they're very similar to the Pioneers. Again, should be from people who can speak to your. But for the early independence award, though, it would be good if the letter writers could speak to your potential for leading a laboratory, leading your own independent research enterprise. Do you have the skills necessary? Do you have the scientific vision? Do you have that fire in the belly to really launch early? We asked, it would be good if the reviewers could speak to that, as well as your track record and your potential going forward, as well as something about the project that you're proposing. Because these are people who are just finishing up their training, their PhD training or clinical training, and they may not have all the publications yet that they expect to have. So this is one way for the reviewers then to get a better handle on the qualities of the investigators about productivity in the laboratory, what they've done, what they plan to do. So it's similar, but also there are nuances for the DP5. It'd be good if the letter writers could read the FOA so they could get a good idea of what's being sought, what the emphases are for the DP5 program.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough to all of you to read that RFA, because they will have in their review criteria, that's what the reviewers use to review your application. So you probably want to keep those in mind as you write your application. Another question here, what if I've worked in biotech for a few years after PhD? Would that count as a postdoc? Now, I think that's in reference to the
DP5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. It's the real window is when you complete your terminal research degree or finish your clinical training. So you don't really have to do a post. The real calculation is based on completion of the research degree or clinical training.
I sort of think that we've answered all the questions. If I'm wrong, if you can write them in the Q&A box real quick, if there's anything else we can answer more, but I think we've answered everything. If not verbally, then we typed in an answer into the chat box for folks. So I see no other open questions. I'll give it maybe another few seconds. Well, maybe we'll have our NMR team here to answer or ask some questions.
But it's gratifying to note how many people have stayed on. Thanks for your interest.
Yeah. And you all can get the, oh wait, our preliminary results allowed for a DP2. Yes, of course you can include preliminary data, but it's not required, but you certainly can include it if you have it. And here's another one. I want to clarify, the DP2 can be awarded to a postdoctoral fellow. Well, you could be a postdoc when you apply, but likely you are on your way to an independent research position. But maybe it hasn't started. Like if you start your job, your assistant professor job in September, and the applications are due in August, you could apply before you get there, but you should have that independent research position nailed down. Remember, the institution that you will be working at for your independent research position will actually put the application in for you.
Right, and if I could add to that, yeah, if you are not in an independent research position at the time you apply, the requirement is that you have such a position by September 1st, the following September 1st. So for example, this would be September 1st of 2023.
Okay, Robbie, there's one more question here. It's again about that application submission date. They didn't understand. I think we're not understanding each other. She says, I am starting.
What did you say, Trish?
Say what? He's being funny. Okay, here's the question. I am starting my position. I don't know which one. I think it's an independent research position, August 15th. And submitting my application before that date. But my letter writers may not submit until after August 15th. Would that change my submission date?
Oh, no, as long as the letters are received before the receipt date. You can submit your application within that 30-day window that ends on the receipt date given in the FOA. So if you do it 15 days before the receipt date, that's fine. And if your letters come in after that, that's fine. Our calculation is based on when you submit your application, not when the letters come in.
Okay, and then there's one more here. I'm going to have you answer this, Robbie. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to look to you for this. Can my institution say the independent position is dependent on winning the DP2?
No,
Yeah.
according to the FOA, you must have an independent research position by
Right,
September 1st.
yeah,
So we need to follow what's in the FOA. And like Trish said, if the very act of the institution submitting the application on your behalf indicates that they will provide appropriate resources for you as an independent investigator. It doesn't have to be tenure track faculty, but anything that would normally, any sort of position that would normally allow you to submit an R1 application without a special waiver.
okay, well, I think we have answered everything. And Reagan's going to tell us how people can find a recording or the slides or whatever it is that you're going to do, Reagan, something magical.
Yes. Well, again, we want to just thank the panelists for this, for participating in this webinar with this incredibly important discussion. And we thank everyone for all the attendees for joining. And yes, you will be able to see the recording on our YouTube channel that will be posted today. And then I will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone who registered to send to show that recording, and then also send you all those slides from the NIH High Risk, High Reward. So again, one last time, we want to just thank you all for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yes, good luck with your applications. We look
Thank you.
forward to seeing them. Bye.